Hi, my name is Miriam Goldman. I was one of the lead organizers for WordCamp Canada this year, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Jill Binder's session. Jill Binder, pronouns she, her, is a public speaking coach for professionals in tech. She has empowered over 600 individuals in 50 countries, working with organizations such as WordPress, Adobe, and Drupal. Her work has been translated into 6 languages, if you can believe that. Jill founded and led the global hashtag WP Diversity group in the WordPress community team, sponsored by Automatic. There, she conducted 99 workshops for underrepresented voices and mentored a large global contributor group. She received multiple awards and accolades for this work. Speaking personally, as a former lead contributor to this group, I just can't understate the importance and impact of this work. Jill's coaching is built on 30 years in tech, a computer science degree, and countless hours debugging. Jill now lives by the ocean in Vancouver, BC, Canada. This is her first in-person talk since 2019, and it's a brand new talk written especially for this year's edition of WordCamp Canada. So please enjoy From Canada to the World, 10 Lessons from Working with 50 Countries.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Jill. Hi, Courtney. Hi. First of all, I know it's not great form to be reading a keynote and being a public speaking coach. I'm very cognizant of this, but as Miriam mentioned, it's my first time speaking in person since 2019. It's a new talk, and also, most importantly, there's a lot of really sensitive information in this talk, and I really need to get it right. So I'll be reading. Think of this as a cross between a keynote and like a live book launch where I'm reading a fabulous book that I've written for you. Quick question. If I told you you can go have a bath in the middle of this speech, how would you feel? So this actually happened to me. I learned the hard way outside of North America, saying you can get up to go to the bathroom at any time does not translate. In North America, it's any room with a toilet, and outside of North America, it's any room with a bathtub, might not even have a toilet. So people thought I was saying they could take a bath in the middle of one of the workshops. What happens when you have a local WordPress workshop for WordPress Vancouver and scale it to the whole global WordPress community? People. It turns out scaling has a lot more to do with humans and cultural nuances than it does with systems. So think of this talk as the opposite of most of the talks that you heard today about AI. Now we're going to talk about one-to-one person human interaction. Today I'm going to share with you the lessons that I learned facilitating WordPress public speaking workshops for 50 countries around the world online. The lessons that I'll share didn't come from textbooks. I learned these all the hard way, from real-world experiences and real interactions. By the way, the title of the talk that I sent in said 10 lessons, but I wrote that before I wrote the talk, so it's 9 instead of 10. Think of this as like an off by 1 error, except no exceptions will be thrown. Okay, now that I've scared all the non-developers in the room, don't worry, those are all my nerdy developer jokes for this talk. I'm Jill Binder, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm a public speaking and accent reduction coach for professionals in tech. You might know me from my work as the creator and lead of the hashtag WP Diversity group on the WordPress community team for 5 years, where we worked on creating more diverse speaker lineups at our WordPress events through public speaking workshops. I've run international teams, I've run international events, built global teams, and learned a lot, sometimes the hard way. I live in Vancouver, BC, with my art supplies and my plants. My website is speaktechconfidently.com, and I'm on LinkedIn at Jill Binder. This is a conference about Canada, so let me tell you, I'm a polite Canadian. When I say polite Canadian, I'm referring to the stereotype that all Canadians are polite, and of course, we are not. But myself, I'm often, not always, an over-polite Canadian, saying excessively, please, thank you, sorry, and wanting everyone to be happy. So let's have some fun with this. When I say, I am a polite Canadian, I want you to call back to me, you are a polite Canadian. I am a polite Canadian. You are a polite Canadian. I am a polite Canadian. You are a polite Canadian. Who learned as I went how to navigate culture, identity, language, power, and emotion around the world with real people, with real challenges, and very real hearts. Knowing what I know now, what would I do to create a community, international or otherwise? These are the lessons that I learned, that I wrote for myself, and hopefully they'll help you too. You'll learn today about collaborating thoughtfully across cultures and handling the unexpected in any community, even with people you live with, say, at home. These are lessons that you can start to apply right away. The stories that I'll tell you today, first my story with some explanation about the WordPress community, because I've been told that not many people know how the global WordPress community works. Then a couple of stories about English around the world, then a story that's more culturally specific, and then a set of stories that are more culturally sensitive. They'll touch on heavier topics, race, identity, power, and I'll do my best to guide us through with care. And then we'll talk about creating cohesive communities across all countries and cultures. My story. When I was co-organizing our WordPress Vancouver conference, we had only 4 out of 28 speakers from underrepresented groups. People were really upset about this, and so was I. We wanted more. The thing is, we didn't get applications. So 5 of us in Vancouver, these 2 ladies and I, and 2 more, created a public speaking workshop to help underrepresented voices want to speak at our local WordPress conference. By the way, which one do you think is me in this blurry picture from 12 years ago? Person in the front pointing out correctly, person in the back also pointing out correctly. Amazing. Correct? That one is me. We had so much success with this workshop over the years. We consistently had around 50% underrepresented voices speak at our WordCamps. Other cities started doing their own versions and having similar lineups too. So the global WordPress community asked me to incorporate the best versions from all of the cities who are running it and to take it worldwide. The goal was to get more underrepresented voices all around the world want to apply to speak at WordCamps, and for those who wanted the extra help, also to become more engaging and confident speakers. Worldwide? Yes. Did you know that the WordPress community Did you know that WordPress isn't just a platform for making websites, it's a massive global community? Yes. Yay, somebody in the audience knows that. These are the 50 countries that I reached, and this isn't even all of the countries in the WordPress community. Let me tell you a little bit about the WordPress community. This is going to be an oversimplified view. Volunteers gather in local monthly meetups in most cities and annual WordPress conferences called WordCamps in most regions to learn and share knowledge from each other about WordPress. So we created our workshop for our meetup, Vancouver WordPress meetup, and then that impacted our Vancouver WordCamp. Overseeing the meetups and WordCamps is the global entity called Make WordPress, which consists of about 25 different teams that anyone can join. I joined the community team, and over the years, I helped bring this workshop around the world, working with volunteers across many of the different teams, including Learn, who helped us improve the workshop, Polyglots for translations, it was translated into 6 languages, Marketing, to get people to attend the workshops, and TV to get our workshops up online. You can see make.wordpress.org for the full list of teams. So I worked at this level in Make WordPress to bring it back down to WordCamps and meetups around the world. As I tell you about what I learned in the world, my first disclaimer for you is I'm not an anthropologist, I am not a psychologist, these are just my own experiences. You might have had completely different experiences than I've had and have a different perspective, and I'm not here to speak for everyone, just to share what I've seen and what I've learned along the way. Nothing that I'll say today is the truth. Take or leave anything that I share. What I learned about speed of language. One time, I was doing a session for a few countries in Europe who spoke English, but it wasn't their first language. However, they wanted to give speeches in English. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. I was in a flow, moving through the material, feeling good. Then I asked the group a question. Silence. Not the thoughtful kind, the confused kind. Finally, one participant unmuted himself and said, "Sorry, could you repeat that? You speak fast." Issues with my voice go deeper than just being nervous. It started when I was little, and this is something that I didn't even put together until I was writing this speech. Let's go back in time to little Jill, even more little than I am now. And when I say even more little, I am standing on a pedestal because otherwise you would only see my eyes above this laptop. Here is a cute headshot of little Jill with her head tilted at an angle. I didn't say my first word until I was 4 years old. Then it wasn't a word, it was full grammatically correct sentences. And I talked a lot. I didn't stop. But I talked fast and quietly, and I mumbled. For the first half of my life, I was either silent or talkative and hard to understand. Also, I said weird things. I was really socially awkward. My parents thought drama classes might help, so off I went every Saturday morning to learn how to be someone else. Now, drama class didn't cure my awkwardness, but it did teach me something else. I could speak louder, slow down, take pauses, and enunciate. And those lessons stuck, mostly because my natural voice, still as an adult, is fast, quiet, and a bit mumbly. And every now and then it was sneaking back in, including when I was delivering workshops. So when that participant said, "Sorry, could you repeat that? You speak fast," something about the vulnerability in his voice hit me. I realized I wasn't just rushing through content, I was missing connecting. So I did what drama class taught me all those years ago. I took a breath, I slowed down, I spoke every word like it mattered, and then something shifted. People leaned in, questions started flowing, and the workshop came alive. That moment taught me something that I teach people about stage presence and to be understood around the world. Many speakers speak too fast, but audiences, they almost never complain that someone went too slowly. On the other side of this, one very early morning for me, I was running a Zoom workshop with a group from different countries in Asia. Again, they wanted to do speeches in English. And as we moved into the discussion portion, I asked some open-ended questions and again, silence. Finally, somebody unmuted and said, "Sorry for my bad English." And another wrote in the chat, "I'm afraid to speak because of my accent." It really hit me. These brilliant, thoughtful professionals were holding back, not because they didn't have ideas, but because they just felt ashamed of how they sounded. That moment changed me. I realized that helping people speak clearly wasn't just about forming the letters in the mouth in a certain way. It was about self-expression. I started studying accent reduction to help people not just improve clarity, but to help people feel more confident sharing their ideas, no matter who they're speaking to and where in the world they're speaking. The first step to being understood, whether you're a native speaker or English is not your first language, is what I learned in drama class: slowing down, enunciating, and that's now the first thing that I teach in accent reduction. Lesson 1, slow down and enunciate. What I learned about ambiguous words and phrases. Like I was telling you at the start, one ambiguous word is bathroom. Here it means the room with the toilet, but in other places it's the room with the bathtub. I started saying toilets every time. That is universally understood. You can go to the toilet at any time. Let's do another ambiguous phrase. If I were asking volunteers in a public speaking exercise in a workshop, and I said, "Raise your hands popcorn style," what do you think that would mean? Any guesses from the audience? Oh, somebody got it right away. Yeah, okay, great. So that's it. You know how popcorn kernels pop randomly in a pan? One here, one there, not in a particular order. That is what I meant. People raise their hands when they feel ready to speak. Just for fun, I want everyone to raise their hands at different times, popcorn style, in spontaneous pops around the room. Yeah! Yay group. So I changed that sentence to, put up your hand when you feel ready to do this exercise. Just like my bad one-off error joke at the start, that was a term for developers, there are some words and phrases that just don't translate to everyone around the world. And I don't just mean our Canadian words like toque, loony, or I'll have a double-double at Timmy's. So how do you prevent ambiguous words and phrases? When I write for international audiences, I look it over for sayings and metaphors that are not literal, and then I rewrite it in plain language. Recently, I was writing "plant the seeds," and I remembered I should say it directly, like introduce a concept that someone might use later. Lesson 2, look for ambiguous words and phrases. What I learned from women in Latin America. And by the way, I have a trans definition of women. When I say women, I mean people who identify as women some or all of the time. I was invited to travel to Costa Rica to deliver a weekend-long workshop. Unfortunately, I have chronic illness and I was not able to travel during COVID. By the way, WordCamp Canada is my first time since 2019 getting on a plane and going to an in-person event. Thank you. The women did not want to meet on Zoom, and it was really important to them to meet in person. So the organizers and we came up with an idea. I ran the workshop from Zoom while they all met in a hotel event room. Here you can see me leading the workshop from Zoom in the event room. My normally tiny head was a giant head on a giant screen. We put in a lot to make the experience smoother, like having a direct Zoom for the women to talk to me, training mentors to be there in person to help with the hands-on writing exercises and speaking exercises, and someone to translate my English into Spanish for them through headsets. Even with all the Zooms, planning, and support, they were not happy that I was not in the room. I'll never forget one woman coming to the screen with tears in her eyes and telling me, "We've waited months for this. I traveled to be here today. Why wouldn't you come? Her disappointment wasn't about the workshop, it was about connection. Lesson 3, always ask, what does this group need? Let's have a little break. Put your hands up, popcorn style, again, yay! Awesome, you're all pros at this. When I pitched the idea for this talk today, I thought it was going to be all cute stories about different countries and cultures, but I was running workshops for underrepresented voices, so most of my lessons are from the lens of diversity and inclusion. Especially how I kept stumbling into unexpected situations, and I learned a lot along the way how to handle these situations. When I started my diversity and inclusion work, I barely knew anything about it. I just asked to take this workshop around the world, didn't know what I was walking into. And I've also come to learn that even those who are already experts still make big mistakes. No one is immune to this. There are always surprises that come up. So before we get into the next section, I'm going to get more now into race, identity, and power. And before I do, I want to name something important. And this is my disclaimer too, and this is about being a polite Canadian. I'm a white woman in Canada, and I can't begin to understand everything that you're going through. Even though I spent many years working deeply in diversity and inclusion, there's so much that I'm constantly learning. Also, I'm sometimes socially awkward and may say things that are incorrect or weird. And I want you to know that my intentions are good. And if I do say something that makes you feel uncomfortable, I don't expect you to spend your energy on me, but if you're open to it, I would like to learn from you. And you can bring it up in the Q&A or talk to me after. And if you do need to leave the room for any reason or take a break for a bit, I understand. This disclaimer is not something that you hear said every day, and I'll tell you later the story of why I started saying this. What I learned from posters in India. We were organizing public speaking workshops specifically for India, and we wanted good promotional material, so naturally we asked someone in India to create the posters. It makes sense. Who better to create something for India than someone from India? Well, did we hear an uproar about those posters? Not from India, from North Americans. They were angry. You can't show someone with light skin on the poster. I wanted to show you the poster, but I looked everywhere for it. I couldn't find it, and that's probably for the best. That moment that people were angry taught me something. Yes, things should be created by and for the communities that they represent, but representation doesn't exist in a vacuum. Other people are watching, and other people are impacted. Lesson 4, who else needs to see this before it's published? What I learned from diversity in the Philippines and Africa. At one of my workshops, I was chatting with a man from the Philippines, and he asked me something that made me stop. What does diversity even mean? Here in the Philippines, I'm in the majority, but on most tech conference stages, I'm viewed as a person of color. And I'll be honest, my first instinct was to jump in and explain to him, but of course he already knew. He wasn't looking for an answer. He was just asking to be heard. People want the space to explain their point of view, and there is so much value in listening. If someone is saying something outside of the way that we think about things, always listen. Say something like, I never thought of it that way. Tell me more. By asking this, I got to learn something new. He told me that back home, he's part of the majority, he's well represented, he's in the group that holds power. So it's confusing and even disorienting to step onto a global stage and suddenly be labeled a minority. I've heard the same thing from Africans. At home, they're the majority, and on global platforms, they're underrepresented. And that shift feels weird. It feels disorienting. I have one vigorous nod in the back. Lesson 5 is do active listening. Oh, I really need to go to the bathroom right now, but I probably shouldn't go take a bath in the middle of the talk. I don't want to be rude. I am a polite Canadian. You are a polite Canadian. We talked about Black men in Africa being well represented at home. Now let's talk about Black men in America, where they're not the majority. They're very much a minority, and my experience working with them was quite different. This section will be a little longer, but don't worry, we're going to get 3 lessons out of it. Okay. There was a mix-up about how to get tickets for some workshops, and several of the men were quite sad and even upset that they couldn't get in. Apparently, they had spent considerable time getting their courage up just to attend. This started coming up more and more. I was hearing from the men about what a big deal it was, not only to speak up at the workshops, but just to attend. I was surprised and confused about this. It wasn't until something else happened that I learned the reason behind this. At one of my workshops, a Black gentleman was really excited to be there. Think happy, nervous, excited energy. When he introduced himself, he used a different name than what he was showing on his Zoom name. The volunteers and I asked him to change his name on Zoom to his name so that we would know what to call him. Just like a hello, my name is name tag that we would have at in-person events. He had trouble making the change on Zoom. Then he left, abruptly. Then he canceled his ticket for the rest of the workshop series. He had been so excited to be there, so I was really worried about him. What would you do? Someone was excited to be there, couldn't change their name on Zoom, left and canceled all their tickets. Being completely out of my depth here, as I often was, I consulted with a few fellow diversity experts to get their thoughts and to make sure that I was going about this the right way. They said not to start with an apology. He hadn't actually told me what was wrong, so before making assumptions about what I thought happened, first do a check-in with him. So I wrote, "Hi," person's name. "I'm just checking in. Is everything okay? I was happy to have you there at the workshop, at the start of the workshop today, and then you disappeared and canceled the sessions." He was kind enough to spend his energy to write an email back to me explaining what his Zoom name meant to him. It was his brand name. What his real name meant to him, and that he was there to learn to use his voice for speaking on podcasts and at conferences to own his brand name, and that he had felt erased. Let's talk now about apologizing, something I learned a lot about over my years of doing the international work because, gosh, I was constantly making missteps and apologizing. First, if I had given him the space to say something at the time, it would have gone quite differently, and probably no apology would have been needed. But because I did not do that, an apology was appropriate. Let's look now at 2 different kinds of apologies. Number 1. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. I meant well. I wanted to know what to call you. Are you okay? What can I do to make it better?" And here's number 2. "I'm sorry that I asked you to change your Zoom name and I didn't help you own your brand name. It makes sense why you would leave the workshop. I recognize that I came across as invalidating and erasing you. Next time, I'll check if the person wants to change their Zoom name first before trying to help them." How did each of these apologies make you feel? Which one felt like a better apology, number 1 or number 2? Number two. Okay, I'm getting lots of number twos around the room. Yeah, number two. Why? Let me talk you through it. Number one makes it more about me and my feelings, and it puts responsibility on him to tell me how to make it better. He's already hurting. He doesn't need to take care of me on top of that. Number two, that one is not about me. It's about the other person. It's not for making me feel better. It's for understanding what they're going through, taking ownership, and doing better next time, and really meaning what I say. I have a script for this, but it's not about the script. I just find it helpful for myself, being socially awkward, to have a structure so I remember the steps to try to do right by the person. Take full ownership. No ifs, no buts, no excuses. I'm sorry that I recognize that I'm sorry that I asked you to change your Zoom name and I didn't help you own your brand name. Understand and then validate their feelings. Make an effort to understand where the person's coming from. It's your responsibility to put in the effort. You don't have to agree with what they're feeling, but they're not your feelings. It's their feelings. Someone else's feelings are always 100% correct, no matter what. And you need to get that and to see it from their point of view. Once you do, you could say, it makes sense why you would feel or do about that. It makes sense why you would leave the workshop. Name what you did. I recognize that it came across as invalidating, erasing you. And I like to say I came across as because it was not my intention to invalidate or erase him, but that's how it came across to him. How will you change your behavior? Next time I will, or there won't be a next time. I won't do this again. Next time I'll check if the person wants to change their Zoom name before trying to help them do it. And do not say your own feelings about it. It's always so tempting to say, I feel terrible. Your feelings are unimportant here. I also offered to the gentleman that we could talk about this further, and luckily for me, he took me up on that. For 2 hours, we had a long call. I didn't say much. I listened actively, and he passionately told me several things that I could improve. The one that I want to share with you is tying back to the Black men who were nervous about coming to the workshop. He explained that Black men never know what is a safe space for them to be in, so it is just more nerve-wracking just to show up. And the key here is, he told me, I wasn't being authentic and vulnerable, so people didn't know my motives and didn't know if they could trust me. Also, this is where that disclaimer number 2 came from. My diversity colleagues and I put together the script about being a white woman in Canada who has good intentions. I suggest you come up with your own script, but only if it's genuine. And also, I was reminded when I was running this speech past several different people, especially different diversity consultants, a disclaimer doesn't replace forming a real, genuine connection over time. It won't make people instantly trust us. But in the situation that I was in, 600 people I had never met before over the course of 5 years, showing up to a vulnerable workshop, I found it for myself to be helpful. A little shortcut to let people know that despite being awkward and saying weird things, that I was genuine and mean well. And this is not a get out of free jail card. Do not, if you have a disclaimer like this, don't think you can start saying awful things. Still, do your best, be genuine, make everybody feel as good as possible. See, we're going to be constantly making mistakes, but if we're afraid of making mistakes, then we'll never try and never make a difference in the world. Lesson 6, use a heartfelt disclaimer about meaning well. Lesson 7, take ownership, apologize, do better. And lesson 8, be authentic. So our lessons so far, slow down and enunciate, look for ambiguous words and phrases, always ask, what does this group need? Who else needs to see this before it's published? Do active listening, use a heartfelt disclaimer, take ownership, apologize, do better, and be authentic. As I was writing the speech, I was reminded of something else that I added in as well. What I learned about creating cohesive communities. So everything that we've talked about has to do with differences or recovering from mistakes, and it makes it sound like I'm othering people, as in categorizing and separating people and making assumptions about them. The fact is, it was my job to think about differences. It was my job to help people bring different perspectives about technology to the stage from as many countries as I could reach. But that is not a great way to build community and not a great way to relate to people in real life. Imagine people don't like being categorized, separated, and othered. So I have a couple more quick tips that I wrote for myself for creating cohesive community and for building a sense of connection. Don't make assumptions based on what someone looks like, where they're from, or anything else. For example, don't ask what country someone is from. You might be curious, but it is insulting. It's basically saying you don't belong here. Instead, look for common ground. We're usually together at a place for a reason. In a classroom, we're there to learn about the subject. At a WordCamp, I skipped. Don't make assumptions based on the person is probably not who you think they are. Okay, yeah. When leading a group or when talking with someone, don't bring up their culture, country, or any other differences. I'm not sure if I said the first one. I'm going to say it again just to make sure I got it. Don't make assumptions based on what someone looks like, where they're from, or anything else. Get to know the person in front of you. They're probably not who you think they are. And when leading a group or when talking with someone, don't bring up their culture, country, or any other differences. Instead, look for common ground. We're usually together at a place for a reason. In a classroom, we're all there to learn the subject. At a WordCamp like this, we're all here for WordPress. We can also look for common hobbies, skills, and interests, like maybe we both love sci-fi or crocheting. If they do bring up something about their country, then absolutely, we can give them our full attention and listen. We might even ask questions about it, but only if it feels appropriate and only about the topic that they're talking about. Lesson 9, all around the world, we're just humans. Most of us want to be seen, to be heard, and to belong. So what happens when a small workshop in Vancouver goes global, reaching 50 countries? I learned that systems can scale, sure, but trust, empathy, and connection will never be automated. They take effort and care every time. If you take one thing from this talk, let it be this. You don't need to be perfect to work internationally. Just be polite, be willing to do your best, be willing to try, to give space to others to be themselves, to always mean well, to ask questions, to own your missteps, and to keep growing. When we show up with care, we create spaces where others can show up too. And maybe you'll make your own mistakes and come up with your own lessons. Oh, and one more lesson. Remember how I originally planned for 10, but it was 9? It's another off by 1 error. It actually is 10 lessons. Right. This way, I can end with one of the most important lessons for working internationally when being off by 1 does matter and does make a difference. What could it be? It's about time. Time zones. Oh my God, time zones. Check the time zones. Don't just check today's time. Check the time for the actual date of your event. Send out a calendar invite so everyone has the correct time. Lesson 10, mind the time zones. If they have the wrong time and can't show up, then none of the other lessons matter. Let's stay in touch. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Mastodon, X, and the WordPress Slack. On most of those, I'm Jill Binder, all one word. And I'm building a free community off of social media with tips and tricks and networking support for public speaking and accent reduction in tech. My current passion is helping all professionals in tech, not just underrepresented versus well-represented, everybody, and I'd love for you to join. That's speaktechconfidently.com/connect. That is where you can find the links for all of those. And I think we might have 1 or 2 minutes left for questions. Do we have timekeeper? How much time do we have?
3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. So, any quick 1 or 2 quick questions or comments? How do we do the microphone thing, or do they just call it out and I'll repeat it?
So if you have a question, call it out to Jill, please,
And yeah, call it out and I'll repeat it. Because of time. Oh, we had some hands at the front here.
Go ahead.
This is really cool. I was wondering, do you have, I have trouble remembering names of people because of the differences in culture. Do you have any tips for that?
That is such a good question. So with different cultures, hard to remember people's names. So I was in the lucky position where I had everybody's names ahead of time, and I also had an admin assistant who I could pay to do this because it was time consuming, but it's absolutely worth it. We would Google the names and the pronunciations ahead of time. It might not be right, but I had a cheat sheet of pronunciations, and and then if somebody told me it was pronounced differently, I had something to go off of. And that was one of the things I learned from the gentleman who spoke to me for 2 hours. I was having a hard time with names, and he said, the names are beautiful, and it's not up to other people to teach me. It is my responsibility to learn them. So after that, I always did my best with that.
Thank you.
I have one. I'm from Brazil, and actually English is not my mother language. When I was in a meeting with one of the companies that I'm working for, an American company, I said I couldn't attend the call because I was, sorry, thank you. Because I had to go to the toilet, and they said it was rude, so...
So they were saying it was rude to leave the meeting to go to the toilet?
No, the meaning, toilet.
Oh, the word toilet was rude. Okay.
They said, so you went to the toilet, to the bathroom.
Okay. I love this. So what this gentleman is saying is he's from Brazil. He called it toilet, and they said, and the people in the meeting said that word was rude. This is an amazing example of thinking we're doing the right thing, finding out it wasn't the right thing. In this case, you don't need a big apology. It's just a quick, oh, I didn't know that. What word? And then ask, what word do you use? And then just fix it. Same thing with pronouns. We don't make a big apology. Just, oh, I'm they. Okay, great. Thank you for telling me. They, da-da-da. So it's just a quick, we're never going to know every single situation out there, and that was my experience all the time. And thank you for bringing that up. I will correct that if I do the speech again. Okay, that is time, but I am available right after this, tonight, all day tomorrow. I'm also still going to be in Ottawa on the weekend. Find me, ask your questions. I would be very happy to talk to everybody.